Alright, today we're going to be fixing these headlights that are really messed up from the weather. This is 2010 Equinox. I usually like to use 320, but I only have 220 sandpaper on my little DeWalt sander here. So I'm going to knock the top off of this stuff. I'm not going to sand them crazy. And then I'm going to come back with some wet sandpaper. This is 1000 grit. That's why I say I usually like to use 320 on this, but I only have 220, so I'm not going to sand too much on this. Then I'm going to come back, wet sand it with the 1000 grit and some of that Windex over there. Now, if you're not used to using a sander, I would recommend taping this off, but I'm pretty good at the sanding, so I'm not going to tape it off because I'm gangster. And then I've got our wool pad here, which we're going to take the wool pad on this bad boy. This little earthquake polisher, little 12 volt polisher that works pretty dang good. And we're going to first hit it with the wool pad and some of this rubbing compound, 3M. This stuff works amazing. It's got some grit to it, so don't want to get too much on the paint. And then clean it off with the Windex. And then we're going to come back with this foam pad here. We'll hit it with this 3M foam polish and glaze. After we get it nice and smooth, then we're going to do the same thing with this pad with this Endure XXL semi-permanent surface protection and deep shine. A little finishing polish there. And we should be good. Make sure if you have these things that you shake them really good, because if you don't use them all the time, like me, I've had this for years. It goes a long way, and it gets kind of separated if you don't use it in a while. So we'll get started. Put our sander on a lower level. It's on level 1. This thing's pretty smooth. Kind of keep it flat. Get all this junk off of it. Kind of wipe her off. So I'm kind of stopping at this line here because I don't want to, this is not too messed up down here. Maybe this right here is some scratch. So I'll probably sand that a little bit, but I'm not really going to sand much down here because it's not really messed up. Sand those imperfections out. So you don't want to have to sand too much by hand with that 1000 grit. We're just knocking it down with this 220. When you get to this edge, kind of just feather it in there so you don't hit the paint too much. Get all this chunky monkey off of it. Especially this top here. This top is nasty. Like a gorilla skin. There should be plenty of sanding with the 220. So now we're going, this one doesn't have any funky spots here. So now we're going to take this Windex. We're going to fold our paper up into threes. I usually would take a DuraBlock and wrap the DuraBlock pad here, but I can't find my DuraBlock because I never put shit back where it goes. That's just the way it is. I'll spray this down. I mean, you can use soapy water, but I like Windex because it is what it is. Helps kind of get any BS off of it. Just kind of keep your hand flat and sand her down. You don't have to sand a good bit, especially me, because I use the 220 instead of 320. So I have to sand a lot more, put a good bit of pressure, kind of cup your hand, you know, hold your thumb there and then cup your fingers there to have control of the sandpaper good. Get that edge real good. Kind of go in different angles to get all the rest of them 220 scratches out. I'll sand some more by hand. I'm going to sand a ton in here because I use that 220, but down here I'm not going to sand too much because it's pretty clear, it's not too messed up, and I don't want to have to buff more than I have to. I'll sand these down and come back and check it out and get to buffing. Alright, so we got about 5 minutes of wet sanding. See how kind of hazy it is now, but there's not some deep, you don't see the deep 220 scratches. Just pretty hazy from the sanding. Try to get most of them deep scratches out with that 1000 grit and wiped it down. You definitely want to wipe it down with your rag before you get all that gunky runny stuff drying. And you don't put a ton of this compound on. You just kind of dot it around like so. Blop, 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 blop. You just want to do one at a time so you don't make too much of a mess. You want to take your wool pad and just kind of spread it in by hand without it going, so you don't sling the shit everywhere. Get it down here, all around, like a toothpaste almost. And I'm gonna start up here. You always want to spit it that way, because if you go the other way, it's gonna kind of grab. So you kind of go slow first, get it in the nooks and crannies, and then slowly speed it up. Kind of angle it to the side and go ham. You do want to wear a shirt that you don't really care too much about, because this compound will get all over your shirt. And a lot of times it won't come out. Really put a little bit of pressure down at an angle, kind of to the right, so you get all them little scratches out with this compound. And the edge kind of is a pain there. Spent a little bit of extra time in that spot there because we did sand the heck out of that scratch. And what this does, it heats the plastic up a little bit while it's kind of sanding it with the grit, and it kind of floats the plastic around a little bit into the cracks that you created, the scratches you created with the sanding. We'll put a little bit more on the edge, because we did sand a good bit with the 220 up here. There's still some scratches there. Be like new. I'm gonna buff a little bit more, and then we'll come back and wipe it down a little bit, get all this junk off with our handy dandy rag, and we'll go back with the polish. Alright, so we got them buffed down with that rubbing compound pretty good. There's still some little sanding marks in there a little bit, which is to be expected with the using 220 like a dumbass. You want to make sure you clean all these corners real good with your rag before that compound stuff dries, because once it dries in there, it ain't never coming out. Around this rubbers here, get it all out, especially these plastic pieces. See the little bit of skittle scattle there? Rub it off a little bit, spray it with some Windex, because once it dries and soaks in there, it ain't coming out. I'm not looking for perfection with this job, so I mean, this is my vehicle. If I was doing it for a customer, I would be doing a little bit better, but I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not that picky when I'm the customer and the mechanic. So, but if you guys wanted to do it nicer, you want to sand a little bit more. I mean, I would have preferred to have some 320 on this thing too, and get it down. But you can see here now, you can actually see this gray here, which you couldn't even see it before because it was so hazed over. Couldn't even tell that that was a color or that was a color. So now you can see them. Now I got this pad on. We're gonna do this pretty much the same thing with this foam polishing glaze, and then we're gonna wipe it down again, and then we're gonna come back and do that finishing spray there to help protect it in the weather. With the polishing glaze, you want to dribble it on there kind of like before, kind of spread it in a little bit with your pad so you don't fling it everywhere. This stuff is like liquid gold, so it ain't cheap, this 3M stuff. You don't want to just sling it all over your driveway like a skeet monkey. So you just kind of get it in there. I usually start at the top of the most nasty part that needs the most love and kind of angle it a little bit. You see, instead of being straight down, you want to angle a little bit to the right and then apply a little bit of pressure so and you can also, so you have less marks. You can take your pad, you can off center it a little bit. And what that does is it almost acts as like an orbital. So it's not gonna create as many marks. See how this kind of flings around like that, almost like an orbital. Put you some pressure, some angle, and then get to slanging. You can do this a lot faster than the compound, because the compound is harder to get off of the other parts of the engine compartment. I mean, if I was doing this for a customer, I would tape off the engine compartment, tape off the fender, so it's a little bit easier cleanup. You don't damage anything as much, but like I said, this is my 10-plus-year-old vehicle. I'm not that worried about it. Just trying to get it looking better, and so I can see at night a little bit better before I hit them deer, because it is deer season. They're running everywhere. So see how the orbital kind of having that offset, it kind of acts as almost like an orbital buffer at a higher speed. And this is covering up the leftover scratches left behind by that wool pad. I'm gonna get on this fender a little bit, get some of my scratches out that I left. Looking pretty nice. And I'm gonna clean this off. I'm gonna do the other one, clean the giblets off, and Then we'll come back for the final stage. She's already looking pretty dang good so far for hillbilly makeover. All right, so we're all sanded down and cleaned off now. She's looking pretty shiny. Again, not perfect, but close enough. I wiped it down pretty good with some Windex, and then we're going to use a new towel, a cleaner towel, because we don't want to wipe the rest of the stuff off, rest of that polish off with Windex. I'm going to shake up our bottle of Endure XL. Some good stuff by Croftgate. We're going to spray them down. We're going to wax it by hand first and let it soak in. Just kind of put a little coat on it and let it soak in. And then I'm going to come back again after about 10 minutes. We'll put another coat on and hit it with that pad there. Kind of finishing touch. And this stuff is really good to use, on your paint. I use it a ton on my motorcycle. If I'm not wanting to wash the whole thing, but I need to shine it up a little bit, it works really good. If it's not too dirty, just shine it up real quick. Quick and slick, safe to use on ceramic coated surfaces. Help shine endure. So you put that on the headlights and on the paint every once in a while after you wash it. It'll definitely help the shine last longer. We'll be back here in about 10 minutes to do the finishing touches. Alright, so we're going to spray her down with this stuff. This Endure XXL. Do our second to last stage. Shine her up. A little bit extra right there where we sanded some more. And you will need 2 batteries for this. This thing eats through some batteries, so don't think you're gonna do it with 1 battery. No matter what kind of mini buffer you have, you're probably gonna need 2 batteries. It takes a lot of juice. Hit the other one. Making sure you have that angle at all times, otherwise it's gonna flop around like a dirty little fish. See what happens when you put it down flat? It just spins around on you. So you gotta have it at an angle. Nice and smooth. Buffinator. Get it to where it's most of the way off. Go back. Skeeter one more time and then wipe it down by hand with your finishing rag here. Get in down the fender a little bit, get all them giblets off, all that skeet juice that you done skeeted everywhere, because this buffer will slide shit everywhere. Get into the little cracks and crevices, because once this stuff dries, it ain't fun to get out. Put your fingernails in the edges. Over the other side. Get the fingernails in the edges, get the excess off. around the top. I'll wipe down the rest of the bumper and the chrome piece. This stuff just goes everywhere. Yep. See, it's kind of dry down here, so I'm gonna spray some more of this Endure. Get the rest of that stuff off. It's all the way up here. All the way up to the A-pillar. And on the door. And on the mirror. Puts it everywhere. Just wipe her down. See all that there. It's even on the front of the bumper here. Now I'll run this bad boy through the car wash just to get the rest of the stuff off before it dries too much. And I'll spray this down with some Windex. Wipe the rest of this panel down. Don't want to get the Windex on the lights because then it takes off your polish that you left behind. You do want to get all this crud off. And if you have paper and stuff to put down, by all means, but I really don't give two turd burglars. I'm just doing a little quickie here, trying to make her look a little bit better for our road trip. Go ahead and spray that down too. Clean it up a little bit. And then we're good to go. They're all pretty shiny. I mean, it's not perfection, but wish I had some 320. I could make it look a little bit cleaner, but it's good enough for government work. Can't see it from my house. And that's all today for Hillbilly Garage. Hit like and subscribe. Help a poor white boy out. I appreciate it. You guys have a great, blessed day and keep on waxing.